Ge Chang-yoon is waiting for the return of the hunting party. They have been in the mountains for days. In order for her fur coat making to continue, the hunters must return with raw materials. The total time spent waiting for the return of the group could become so long that Ge Chang-yoon might be left waiting for the rest of her life. The first snow for 2013 came surprisingly earlier than expected. The snow froze over the newly blossomed flowers in the woods on the north side of the Dashing-an Mountains. The snow brought endless joy for the Orichin hunters that live in Xinjiang village, Haihe City, Heilongjiang province. The Orichin are the only ethnic minority group still allowed to hunt in the mountains. Their guns are kept at the local police station and they can only access them once a year. The best time for hunting in the mountains is right after first snowfall. Ge Chang-yoon had heard there were some people in the village going hunting. She wasted no time hurrying to the road leading to the mountain and sat there waiting for the hunters.
If you get any mountain roe deer, save the fur for me. I am going to make fur clothes. Don't shoot them in the body. Aim for their heads if you can.
In a few months' time, the 60th anniversary celebration will be held to commemorate the Orichin people's migration to the plateau. Ge Chang-yoon is planning to make a traditional Roe Deer fur coat to wear at the celebration. But Roe Deer fur has become harder to find in recent years. Ge Chang-yoon now depends on the favor of young hunters to bring new samples for her. Ge Chang-yoon is a traditional Roe Deer fur coat maker, now a craft considered intangible cultural heritage. The Roe Deer fur coat garments she has made over the years have been collected by many museums and have been in multiple exhibitions. The Orichin robes Ge Chang-yoon makes can last up to 3 years. If only the furs are worn, the robe is still wearable in the summer and autumn. These kinds of robes normally require 8 Roe Deer furs. The entire process can take up to 40 days. Roe deer, also known as dwarf deer or wild goat, is the most common wild animal in the northeastern forest of China. It was the primary source of food and clothing for the Orichin people. The color and thickness of Roe Deer fur changes with the 4 seasons. The Orichin made clothes out of the Roe Deer they hunted throughout the year. Roe Deer hunted in the summer was made into red fur coats for warmer weather. Roe Deer hunted in the autumn was made into blue fur coats for temperate weather. Roe Deer hunted in the winter was made into thick fur coats for the bitter northern cold. The nomadic lifestyle of the Orichin was ideally suited for Roe Deer fur. Whether hats, boots, gloves, or any of a number of daily articles, everything was made from Roe Deer fur, even quilts. Ge Chang-yoon has some Roe Deer fur back at her home, but not enough for a full coat. She is planning to make use of the remaining fur she has for something else instead. fresh roe deer fur cannot be used directly. It must be dried first before it can be used. Air-dried roe deer fur toughens, making it more durable. The process takes approximately 20 days to complete. However, air-dried roe deer fur at first gives the impression of crispy cardboard. Before making a fur coat, roe deer fur must be made soft. Ge Chang-yoon utilizes a traditional technique she learnt from her aunt, which involves crushing and blending boiled roe deer liver in lukewarm water and then spreading the contents of the water over the fur with a soft and resilient reed.
This can't be done with boar liver because it is too greasy. Boar liver will make the fur soft and make for better tanning. When it is wet, the process is much faster.
When the fur is fully dipped, the smaller furs need to be covered in moist sawdust for a couple of days.
What is the sawdust for? Moist sawdust can expedite the process, making it faster and better. It will be soft by tomorrow. The work will be easier.
The process of dispersing liver water over deer fur needs to be carefully monitored to ensure equal distribution, especially at the edges. Deer liver water smells really bad. Not only does it release into the air, it also clings to the body and doesn't wash off for days. This is the main reason why many people don't make fur coats the traditional way anymore. It's a different process for large roe deer furs. After having been dipped in roe deer liver water, they can be rolled instantly.
See, just like this. Just by rolling it, roll it, and it is done. Store it somewhere.
The lowest reported temperature this year reached -40 degrees Celsius. This has been the coldest winter in a decade. Current conditions make it very hard for them to go hunting, but what worries them most is whether they'll have anything to harvest at all. The younger generation enjoy hunting very much, inheriting their passion from the older generation of origin. But what's different is that, in the younger generation, excellent hunters can hardly be found.
When my father used to go hunting, he would bring 2 or 3 deer back with him. It only took him a short while. He always made it count.
Ge Chang-yoon's father, Ge Yoon-chun, is one of the most skilled hunters from the older generation of origin. The quarry he used to hunt fed not only his family, but also many other members of their tribe. In Ge Chang-yoon's eyes, her father is a man of few words. He bears wide shoulders and has that steely demeanor typically found amongst hunters. So long as he gets on his horse and brings his guns, he never comes home empty-handed.
If a family had nothing to eat or had no able-bodied men, we provided for them. The Orichan were a tight-knit group at that time. When deer were brought back, the whole village would enjoy meat. We shared it amongst ourselves. If a family had no meat, my father's group would always provide for them. We'd give them half just for running into them. If you had 2 deer and your companion had none, you'd make sure he had 1 to come home to.
Ge Chang-yoon misses very much origin life from before the migration downhill. During those days, the climate was extremely cold. 8 months in any given year could be expected to be covered in ice and snow. The upside was, of course, that wintertime was better suited for hunting. A hunter spends much of his life amongst the wild animals in the woods, thus he knows very well the habits of the herd in their natural environment. Ge Changyun loves this whole area and knows it intimately. She holds special reverence for the mountains, for from the mountains, everything they need can be found.
You need to have walked every trail in these mountains, and then you can know the place where home is. First, you have to know what the mountains look like. Then you have to remember where your home lies. You have to remember all of that, or you'll lose your way in the mountains.
Before the origin migrated downhill, they were a nomadic community and maintained their bloodlines. Their residence in winter was relatively fixed. The Ge tribe Ge Changyun belongs to was located at the cross point between Xia Bin River and Soer Chigan River. Because of the cold climate and a lack of medical supplies, Ge Changyun's mother died when Changyun was only 8 months old.
I have no memory of my mother. I don't remember what she looks like.
Ge Changyun's mother was gone and her father had to go hunting and would not be seen for months. Ge Changyun's childhood, however, was rather joyful in the company of her grandmother.
My grandmother raised me till I was 9. She always made soup and biscuits just for me. She wouldn't give them to any of my younger stepsisters. I used to say, "Granny, why don't you give any to them?" Sometimes I would sneak some food to my younger sisters. My grandmother used to say to me, "Silly little girl, now I am still alive, that's why you have something to eat. Once I am gone, you'll have nothing." And it became true. Just the way she said it. I soon had nothing to eat. My younger sisters were well fed and were chubby, and my stepmother used to ask me to carry them. I was too little to carry them and was beaten by my stepmother.
Ge Changyun's grandmother passed away when Changyun was 9 years old. Her life changed considerably from that time onwards.
She would tell me I was not her child. Sometimes I would have to live with another family for a few days. I could only return when my father came back from hunting.
Changyun's stepmother is highly skilled in making fur coats. The Roe Deer coat her father would wear was always handmade by her stepmother. Whenever her stepmother was making fur coats, Ge Changyun would observe from a distance.
My stepmother was very dexterous in coat making. I'd always observed, but I'd never actually made one. She wouldn't allow me to touch anything. She used to say that I would spoil the materials.
The first time she got a chance to participate in the process was when she was 13. Her aunt, Ge Buzuo, asked her to tan their fur. Because tanning is a very difficult and dirty job, few people are willing to do it. But Ge Changyun uttered no complaints and worked very scrupulously through every step. Her aunt was very pleased.
Women at that time didn't have names. If their family name was Ge, then a woman would be called Ge. Ge, Artagasa said so. Later, the civil committee came to Xinshang village. They met with my aunt and thought she was very nice, and so gave her a name. They called her Ge Buzuo. That's how she got her name.
Though she has been tanning for decades, Ge Changyun doesn't allow herself to get sloppy. Despite it being the most tiresome task in the entire fur-making process.
The fur is black, isn't it? When this tool is applied, the fur often turns white.
This is the tool the Orichin use to tan their fur. Its shape resembles a reap hook. It is used to scrub the scum and impurities from the fur. Then a tool like a saw is applied to knead the fur.
The saw is of my own making. It softens the fur during the tanning process. The fur becomes soft.
During this process, the hardest part is to fix fur with two crossed feet. The hands comply with one another in a paddling action. Due to the variation in fur shapes and sizes, it is very difficult in practice. This seemingly easy gesture took Ge Changyun 3 years to master. What requires special attention is the pulling of the fur while tanning. Because Roe Deer fur is different from general cloth in its flexibility, unevenly distributed force can cause the fur to bulge and become bumpy. When the fur is clean and soft after tanning, it is ready for scissoring and sewing. Due to the protection of forest resources, hunters from Xinsheng village can only go hunting once a year. In fact, there are only 12 legitimate hunters with hunting licenses left throughout the village, and they cannot hunt at will. Every year, the Forestry Administration sets a hunting quota based on the current condition of forest resources. This year, the quota provided for 50 boars and 10 roe deer. The roe deer to hunter ratio is essentially less than 1 per person. A very important step when making roe deer fur coats is to rub roe tendon into the thread. Firstly, straighten out either deer or moose tendon and then dip it into wet sawdust. When this process is complete, the crispy tendon will turn soft and flexible. A special procedure involves the threading of deer tendon into thread with the resistance of the skin. Fur coats sewed with roe deer tendon are very comfortable. Even when the fur becomes worn, the joints won't split. Following the texture of the fiber, thin the soft and wet deer tendon as fine as possible. When the thin strands of deer tendon are wet, they are ready to be rubbed on the calf. When rubbing the tendon, you have to pull in only one direction. When you're finished rubbing, a thread will be ready.
How many threads are needed to make a roe deer fur coat? The tendons of 2 roe deer need to be joined to sew a fur coat, or a pair of trousers. This little collection of threads is of no use. This requires time. You have to do it slowly. If you are in a rush, you will not make proper thread. It requires patience. You need to do it really slowly. Before the rubbing, it is a mess like this, and it becomes smooth only after rubbing. Here you can see the difference. This is a thread that can be used. So this is the thread for sewing.
The Orichin do not rely on hunting anymore. Their income mostly comes from agriculture. There are only a few elderly people in the village that still maintain a traditional lifestyle. Ge Changyun still practices making traditional clothes every year. She misses the old lifestyle very much. She still dreams of her father riding horses and chasing down deer in the woods. In the present time, excellent hunters like Ge Changyun's father are nowhere to be found. How how gallant it is, a father dashing through the forest on horseback like a gust of wind. Where are the brave and handsome origin now? When sufficient threads are prepared, Ge Chang-yoon will draw up a design for her fur coat. She will draw the pattern on paper and cut it off before fixing it with nails to the fur. The origin do not typically draw designs before tailoring their clothes. They generally directly cut into the fur. If your technique is not good, it is possible to wreck the fur. Ge Chang-yoon learned to draw from paper designs when she settled downhill. She thought this technique to be particularly useful, so she incorporated it into her traditional fur coat making.
Why do I use the scissor to cut the fur? If you cut it as per normal, the fur will come off. If you cut the fur first like this, then the fur can all be saved.
Winter in the Daxing'an Mountains sees dusk earlier than other places. At 5 p.m. the sky goes completely dark. The animals the origin keep are just as cold resistant as their owners. They are able to camp in the mountain when temperatures reach 40 degrees below zero. Roe Deer fur quilts are extremely important for the origin when they camp in the mountains.
So cold.
Though younger hunters are reluctant to wear the traditional Roe Deer coats, the Roe Deer quilt is irreplaceable. Roe Deer quilts are made from winter roe deer at a time when the deer fur is at its longest and thickest. But they only work with direct fur contact. One's skin has to touch the roe deer fur directly.
Just take off your clothes. Don't hesitate.
Ge Chang-yoon is still waiting for the hunting party to return. The origin are very patient. They know no matter how far away the party has strayed, the hunters will always be able to find their way back to camp and their families. The sewing is about to begin. An appropriate amount of strength needs to be applied to achieve a certain amount of flexibility. Both hands need to be employed to check and see if the two fur sides are connected intact. Special attention should be paid to ensure that there are no cracks between the furs or the coat will stretch easily.
Deer tendon stitching seals the cloth perfectly without revealing any of the inner lining. You never see the lining. See? You tear it open and nothing leaks out. If common thread were used, then no matter how tight the sewing job, the lining will always be visible. Roe Deer thread is that good.
The fur coats Ge Chang-yoon makes have another quality. Depending on whether the clothes are designed for men or women, the seams are always put together separately. Though this gives the impression that symmetry was not taken care of when being sewed together, this is exactly the most exquisite part about origin Roe Deer fur coat making. Because the most crucial quality for fur coats is durability, the fur coat will have vastly superior durability due to the seams being derived from two parts. It has been 5 days and nothing has showed up. The hunters are very anxious. They have to go deeper into the woods to track their prey. Whilst venturing further into the woods, they finally locate a target.
Wow, what a big deer. Let's get a closer look.
The hunting party has uncovered a frozen roe deer.
This deer was trapped.
It must have got caught up in one of the booby traps set by the poachers that roam these forests. Unable to set itself free, it looks as if it froze to death. The fur on this roe deer is very intact. With this fur, Ge Changyun is able to finish one of her coats. For about a whole month, Ge Changyun applied herself from dawn till dusk to complete the coat she was working on. However, she barely had the time to wear it as the Heilongjiang Museum soon bought it and added it to their collection. The fur coat designs of the Origin people do not differ between gender with regard to the placement of the button line on the right. The ornaments on the fur coats are very simple. For both aesthetic and durability sakes, the cuffs and hemlines are embroidered with thin leather. With careful work, the coat will soon be flat and durable. On some collars, one can find fox skin or lynx skin. Besides embroidery, female garments are also decorated with feminine patterns. The most commonly used pattern for the Origin people is a cloud shape with a steeple top. This pattern is closely related to the adoration and imitation of nature, a theme close to the hearts of many Origin. Ge Changyun's deer fur coat represents the pinnacle of craftsmanship for the Origin. It's a boutique piece amongst deer fur coats. What excites Ge Changyun most is that she will be invited to Beijing to participate in a clothing exhibition in 2009. This will be the first time she has left her village. On this particular journey, she will likely meet other ethnic minorities from all over the country. At this exhibition, not only did Ge Changyun demonstrate her unique fur coat making techniques, but she also shared some of the warm-heartedness and innocence found amongst the mountain-dwelling ethnic minorities of China. She endeared herself to all those present. During the exhibition, Ge Changyun observed some of the other ethnic minorities' handicrafts. She discovered that the Origin are the only ethnic minority who make clothes from roe deer fur. This point becomes more ironic given the almost accidental way in which Ge Changyun took up fur coat making. Nobody could have predicted that after a few decades, her skills would be recognized by the state as being intangible cultural heritage. As a representative of Origin ethnic handicrafts, she felt exceptionally proud. The hardship and grief of the past decades was all washed away in this moment.
You are all very good dancers. Where is he? You young fellow. Come here. I would like to take a photo with him. Why have you chosen him? I like him. I saw him yesterday and I like him. Let them take a photo for us.
Though the elder generation still favors traditional Origin fur clothing, the younger generation no longer take notice and are mostly unwilling to learn how to make it. But roe deer fur clothing symbolizes the hunting culture of the Origin people maintained for thousands of years. To prevent traditional craftsmanship from dying out, Xinjiang Village in Haihe City now offers young people up to 20 yuan per day to learn traditional craftsmanship. In the beginning, attendees thought it was fun, but Roe Deer fur clothes making is dirty and difficult, and people stopped coming gradually, even with the allowance. Now, there are only a handful of people still sticking with the program. One of them is Ge Changyun's third daughter, Wu Li Wei. She talks about her mother's life experiences and the hardship she endures making Roe Deer fur clothes.
To tell you the truth, I never wanted to learn the craft. I just wasn't interested. It's too dirty. You see, my mum has multiple health problems, severe asthma. She also has rheumatism as well, and now she has a slipped disc. It is really hard and tiresome. But it is a sacrifice I will make for my mother. I'm going to take up my mother's mantle. I'm afraid if I don't, people will accuse my mother of being prideful, spoilt by official recognition and meeting with national leaders. I don't want others to say, Ge Changyun's daughter is unbecoming.
The younger generation neither speak their native language nor know their history. The only way they learn about their culture is through song and dance. What Ge Changyun is playing is a traditional origin game. She used to play it with her elder sister. But when Ge Changyun was 12, her elder sister passed away through severe sickness. She left a daughter behind.
When my sister died, I took care of her little girl. I took her to school. My sister's child. Whenever she cried, she would interrupt the class. I was in 5th grade at that time. My teacher said to me, "Don't come to school anymore with this child. Stay at home and raise her properly. She disrupts the other students' concentration when she cries." That's how I ended up dropping out of school.
In order to take care of her sister's child, Ge Changyun had to leave school. What Ge Changyun didn't see coming was that her father would ask her to marry her brother-in-law when she was 18. Ge Changyun didn't appreciate this arrangement. But her taciturn father said much to her that day, and his words left a lasting impression.
My father said that I'd lost my mother when I was young too, and had nobody to look after me. He said, "Girl, listen to me, and marry your brother-in-law. Do it for the child's sake. Will you do it?" And that is how I married my brother-in-law, who was 12 years senior to me.
That day was the day that Ge Changyun finally had her hardships acknowledged and noted by her father. He knew all too well he never forgot about her. It's just in those days he never knew how to express himself. Ge Changyun misses her father greatly. How excellent at hunting he was. Horses were like his legs. He'd become one with the horse. Whenever he'd raise his gun, he'd always hit his mark, no matter how agile and cunning his targets may have been. During her father's lifetime, Ge Changyun never made any fur coats for him. Her father was entirely unaware that his daughter would one day go on to become a possessor of intangible cultural heritage through her origin fur coat making craftsmanship.
I miss my father and my grandmother. Without them, I wouldn't have... I miss them so much. Whenever I watch TV, I cry. My granny is gone, my daddy is gone. I am indeed having a hard time. As I watch TV, I cry. I can barely take it. My father went away too soon. I never had the chance to take care of him.
Though Go Chang-yoon has made numerous Roe Deer fur coats, her most sincere wish is that she could have had her father wear one of her Roe Deer creations, so that he could have shared in the passion he was so much a part of.